How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a review for the 2021-22 Premier League season, as each of the 20 teams that have competed this season now are aware of whether they're going to be playing next season. I imagine there's probably going to be some relegation game. There's actually no relegation game in the Premier League. The way the Premier League works is that it has the top 20 teams in England no matter what. So the bottom 3 teams are relegated to the second league, and the top 3 teams from the second division get moved up to the Premier League. And the top 7 teams in the Premier League will get a chance to play soccer outside of England next year, as I will go through these teams one by one. But first, starting at the top, I will congratulate Manchester City for winning the title for the Premier League by just 1 point over Liverpool. They would go on to finish with 29 wins, 6 draws, and 3 losses, just beating out Liverpool, who had 1 less loss and 2 more draws, and then they had 1 less loss, 2 more draws, and 1 less win than Man City. At the end of the day, Manchester City has gone on to win the Premier League title for the fourth time in the last 5 seasons, under Pep Guardiola. As the 1 year they didn't win it, 2019-2020, they would finish as runners-up to Liverpool, just to give you a sense of how well this team has really dominated one of the toughest, if not the toughest league in all of soccer in Europe. So with that said, they would go on to be number 1, and taking a look at how they would fill up the leaderboards table, their goalie their goalie Ederson would go on to finish with 20 clean sheets in the 37 matches he played, as he was very responsible for helping this Manchester City team. And not to mention that all over the world, all around the way, they were seeing a lot of their players help out in a lot of serious ways. And this Manchester City team, even though they would end up losing in the semifinals of Champions League, having won this Champions League title, especially at the very end, after having to come back from being down 2-0 to Aston Villa, I think it definitely means a lot more to them, as Ilkay Gundogan, I imagine, is in a situation where he probably never has to pay for a drink as long as he's in Manchester City, for having scored 2 of the 3 goals to help them come back. And then taking a look at the second place in the Premier League, that would end up going to Liverpool. Liverpool finished with 1 less point in the table than Man City, but they, of course, are still automatically going on to Champions League next year. In these leaderboards, they will go on to have the league leading scorer, Mo Salah, who is tied with Son Heung-min for the Golden Boot. Mo Salah would go on to finish with 23 goals on the year. He would go on to finish with 13 assists, along with Mbappe. He was another player who would go on to lead his league and in goals and assists, which is, of course, incredibly impressive. Not to mention that their elite Senegalese forward, Sadio Mane, would finish in the top 5 in the Premier League with goals, as he had 16. In the assists, their elite right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold, would finish with 12 assists. That was second in the Premier League for assists, as he had 12 of them. And then Andrew Robertson, Liverpool's elite left back, would finish with 10 assists, as Liverpool had 3 players in the top 3, proverbial top 3, top 6 for assists in the Premier League, as that would show their dominance, how they were able to come together as a team on the offense. And, of course, their goalie, Alisson, would tie with Ederson for the most clean sheets in the league, as he had 20 clean sheets. He played 1 less match than Ederson, so, of course, his percentage is just a tick higher. But that just shows how close Liverpool and Manchester City were this time. But, of course, the tip would go to Manchester, as, of course, Liverpool going into this Champions League final doesn't have to worry about winning this Champions League final in order to make it into Champions League next year, as they are automatically going. Third place in the Premier League went to Chelsea, as they had 18 less points than Liverpool in the table. They had 21 wins, 11 draws, and 6 losses. They were the 3rd team in the Premier League who only had a single-digit amount of losses. I guess within their leaderboard, their forward Mason Mount from England would be in the top 6 in assists for the Premier League, as he would go on to finish with 10 of them on the year. And then their goalie, Edouard Mendy, would finish with who finished fourth in the Premier League in saves, as he had 14 of them in 34 matchups, just under half of the matchups he played. This is, of course, coming off of the summer in which he would help Senegal, or coming off the winter where he helped Senegal win for AFCON, just to get a sense of the context of the season in which he's played. And of course, with them finishing third, Chelsea will automatically advance to the Champions League. And then taking a look at the fourth spot for Champions League ended up going to Tottenham. It ended up having to go to the last game, but they ended up destroying Norwich City 5-0, as they would get a brace from Kulusevski, a brace from their elite Korean forward Son Heung-min, and then they would get a goal as well from their elite English striker Harry Kane. With this brace, of course, Son Heung-min would finish tied with Mo Salah for the Golden Boot, as he would get a trophy for himself. I believe it's the first time he would go on to win the award. Harry Kane would finish fourth in the Premier League in goals, as he had 17. Tottenham and Liverpool both had two players in the top 5 in terms of goals scored this season. And considering they would just sneak in, looking at where they finished just 2 points above Arsenal, as they had 2 more draws and 2 less losses than Arsenal did on the year, as they both had 22 wins. As the team from North London that will be going will be Tottenham. So, of course, that is... Tottenham after this will be advancing into Champions League. Not to mention that their goalie Hugo Lloris will go on to have he finished third in the Premier League in clean sheets, as he had 16 of them in 38 matchups, one of 3 goalies that had at least 15. Taking a look at who would finish right behind them in 5th place for the top Europa League group stage spot, that went to Arsenal. Arsenal had 2 less points than Tottenham. Like I said, they had 2 more losses and 2 less draws than Tottenham. But within this season, they would go on to kind of find their wings, as they would put on a very impressive year, especially considering their goalie, Aaron Ramsdale, would be one of 9 goalies in the Premier League with double-digit clean sheets, as he had 12 of them. This would also be a season where Bukayo Saka would come out of his shell, and I imagine that Arsenal is definitely not going to take this lying down this coming into this next season. This coming after they finished 8th last year. 6th place in the Premier League went to Manchester United, as they finished 11 points below Arsenal. Their claim to fame this year, of course, was having Cristiano Ronaldo join them from Juventus. Ronaldo finished 3rd in the Premier League in goals, as he would finish with 18 of them. Their elite goalie David De Gea would finish tied for 11th in the Premier League in saves, as he had 8 of them on the year. But following this season, where they were able to finish tied up in the standings with West Ham, but I guess since they have the goal differential, they do have the tiebreaker. They are the team that advances. Or no, they also had 2 more points than West Ham in the table, so they are the team that advances. Sitting right behind Man United and competing for a Europa Conference League qualifying spot is West Ham. West Ham finished with 2 less points, but they are the lowest rated team that will get a chance to play outside of England next year, as West Ham season did come all the way to the end, as they ended up losing to Brighton and Hove Albion in the last game, where a win would have done a lot to help them make it into Europa League. Now looking at the branch of teams from 8 to 17 that are going to be qualified to play in the Premier League next season, and of course the English Cups, but not anything outside of that. 8th place went to Leicester City, as they finished with 52 points, 4 less than West Ham in the table. Tied for 51 points just below them were 9th place Brighton and Hove Albion and 10th place Wolverhampton. Sitting right below them was Newcastle. After being bought by the Prince of Saudi Arabia, the team went from being almost in relegation at that midway point to finishing 11th in the table. Right below Newcastle in 12th was Crystal Palace, as they finished with just 1 point less. Sitting right below Crystal Palace was 13th place Brentford, as the Bees finished with 2 less points to Crystal Palace. Sitting 1 point below Brentford was 14th place Aston Villa. Sitting 1 point below Aston Villa was 15th place Southampton. And then 16th place right below them was Everton. And below Everton was 17th place Leeds United. Leeds United would just escape relegation by 3 points. Sitting below them in 18th place, the best team in the Premier League to get relegated from this season was Burnley. Burnley would finish with only 7 wins on the season, as this season, of course, would be, a solid one for them, but they're going to have to prove themselves in the second division to bring themselves back up. Second team in relegation, of course, is 19th place Watford, as they finished with 12 less points than Burnley. They had 6 wins and 5 draws. They lost 27 of the 38 matchups they played. And then sitting right below them with the worst record in the Premier League this season was Norwich. Norwich City had only 5 wins in the 38 matchups they played. They had 7 draws and 26 losses. Watford had the most losses in the league, but of course Norwich City would have the least amount of points. Burnley, Watford, and Norwich City will have to, of course, finish at the top of the second division to earn their way back in the Prem. And the top teams that, of course, will compromise that second division will be moved up. And we can't wait to see what they do up in this next season. So with that said, that is everything that happened from yesterday, everything that happened with the end of the Premier League yesterday on Sunday, May 22nd. And with that said, I want to congratulate all of the teams that would make it through to the next year in the Premier League. And congratulations, of course, to the teams getting relegated. You have a chance to get yourselves back up. And congratulations to the teams that have qualified to play football outside of England. It's a very big honor to get a chance to represent your club, and that's why people join these clubs in the first place. Thank you, everyone, and the Google and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and the data for this episode. And I will catch everyone with more data with the episodes for the Serie A and La Liga following this. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Thanks for listening to my piece. I'm James Sims, the Elite, and peace out. I'll catch you with more.